As promised, this is part 2 of my Halloween Ends review. I'm going to dive deep into this film with all of the spoilers. So if you have not yet watched the movie, pause this video and then make sure you go and check out the film and then come back and watch this video. So Halloween Ends. The first part of this review, I talked about how I didn't know what side of the fence I was, whether I like this movie or whether I don't like this movie. After having watched it a second time, I can firmly say that I don't like this movie, at least right now. That opinion can change in the future. Like I said, this movie definitely feels like it could be one of those movies that really kind of shifts and changes your perception years later. But there's some things that I really want to dig deep into why I don't like this film that are spoilers for the movie itself. And I think one of these things is that you have to understand first that this film is an anthology film, right? This was a different type of idea. I've went and I've watched a bunch of interviews with David Gordon Green and even Jamie Lee Curtis talking about the idea for this film, the conception. Why did they decide now to end the trilogy this way? And David Gordon Green said he wanted a little bit of romance. Halloween Kills was the big brutal spectacle slasher film that we're used to in this series, whereas Halloween Ends was more of a romantic story with Allison and Corey. And while I can understand him wanting to do something separate and really not trying to kind of rehash what he's already done, I feel like that point of making a romance inside of the final film and making this film revolve around Corey, it really does a disservice to the entire overall story, because this is supposed to be a 4-story arc, not a 3-story arc, a 4-story arc that starts and begins with 1978 Haddonfield of Michael Myers stalking and killing babysitters. One of them happens to be Laurie Strode. Then it follows 40 years later in Halloween 2018 when he escapes from his prison and is now on the loose in Haddonfield yet again and is killing in Haddonfield. And one of the things I really liked about Kills is that Kills really was starting to kind of show more of what Michael is. You know, what is this embodiment of evil? What does it mean? How does it really affect the entire town of Haddonfield? And that is something that is very lost in Halloween Ends, because by the time Halloween Ends starts, yes, it gives you a sense of like where the town is now and how the town is now labeled Corey as the new boogeyman per se, but it feels so lost in translation because everything that it was leading up to in Kills, where you have this idea about the Myers house, you know, Michael loves kind of having this like vantage point from his sister's window. The whole idea of, what the shape is, it's very, very lightly explored in Halloween Ends. And that is such a disservice to the fans who really wanted these answers. You have a lot of loose ends. After watching Halloween Ends, it really cemented me even further into thinking that Halloween Kills is less valid of a film. And that's a problem to me because I really like Halloween Kills. And so now I have to almost look at this trilogy and look at them as separate stories. Separate stories within the same universe as the original 1978 classic. And I don't like that I have to do that. I wish that there was one overarching story, at least with the Thorn trilogy, at least with Rob Zombie's Halloween films, at least with the timeline of Halloween, Halloween 2, H2O, and Resurrection. Like, at least there was one kind of through arc, right? There was one story that was there. At times super incoherent, at times super wacky and weird and dumb, but yet there was still a story there. And with this new trilogy, I feel like that's not the case. Halloween Ends, the big problems that I have with this movie, it's just, this is not a Halloween film at the end of the day. I mean, it's not a Halloween film. Yes, Michael is briefly in the film, and that's not the biggest problem to me, actually. I don't have a problem that Michael's only in like 10 and a half minutes of this film in its entirety. It's the way that they use Michael in this movie. This is the worst version of Michael Myers I've ever seen. Resurrection made a mockery of Michael Myers. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 made a homeless hobo wrestling Michael Myers. This movie makes Michael Myers invulnerable, and that is my issue. Never make Michael Myers, the embodiment of evil, the boogeyman, invulnerable. Because when you do that, you lose the majority of the audience. Michael is fragile in this film, and the big showdown between him and Laurie is so unexplored, so throwaway, so last minute, that when all is said and done and Michael dies at the end, I felt nothing. I should have felt something. Michael Myers is the second greatest villain of all time behind Darth Vader, in my opinion. Granted, again, my opinion, but he is a top horror villain. He is a horror icon, a horror staple. And to do the disservice of killing him and giving Laurie Strode an incredibly honorary ending sucks. And I did say in the first part of my review that they were building up to something to explore in the first two films that doesn't get realized in this movie. And that is a simple idea that Laurie Strode actually introduces, where in order for Michael to die, Laurie's also going to have to sacrifice herself. And they don't do that. And I thought that that's where they were building up to, and I would have been like, okay, I get it, this is what you've been saying. But instead, they go the conventional route of, let's just let Laurie Strode win for the sake of keeping probably number one, Jamie Lee Curtis happy, and number two, having some type of cathartic sense of relief for these characters at the end, that evil is gone. The one thing I did like in this movie is that she clarifies, there's a line in this movie that I think is great, that really sums up the embodiment of Michael Myers, but doesn't really explore it too much, and that is that at the end of this film, when Laurie Strode completes her book, she writes, "Evil has now changed shape." And I like that, because Michael Myers is the shape. That really does feel right to the character. It feels like it embodies the overall message, right, of who Michael Myers is, and essentially who in this movie Corey is, because we get to see Corey's descent into madness. But this movie just did not feel like the ending that the two films prior were leading up to. The Corey character is interesting because I said that this whole movie, your feeling on this film is going to depend on how you feel about Corey as a character. Now, I don't mind Corey. I still, after watching it a second time, I don't mind him. I think that he shows a severe weakness in the character of Allison in the way that she is written and handled in this film, because Allison essentially is an idiot. She's an idiot in this movie. And that sucks, because I do like Andi Matichak. I really did like the character of Allison, but Halloween Kills, she had nothing to do. And then Halloween Ends, she's just really stupid and makes really dumb decisions that I ultimately just don't agree with the choices that her character makes. Now, I like Andi Matichak in the role. I think she's great in this film. I think that she does a really good job of being able to kind of handle these weird shifts in direction for her character. But the character of Corey here, he overpowers Michael, and I never liked that. I hated, but that's why I hate Busta Rhymes. Nothing against him personally. I don't listen to his music. I don't watch his movies or anything else that he's ever done, because I feel so offended by what he did to Michael Myers in Halloween Resurrection. It's not his fault, but it's the film's fault, and it's the movie's fault. And Corey doesn't quite offend me, nor does the movie quite offend me like Halloween Resurrection, but this movie just, making Corey this, dominant figure, making him overpower Michael, having him wear the mask, it really does commit some of the cardinal sins of the Halloween franchise. We don't like watching other people use Michael's mask or have it on. We don't like characters being able to easily overpower or dominate Michael, unless they're Laurie Strode. That's a little different, because again, it's like that yin and yang type of comparison between the two. And then another thing is, we don't want to see Michael's face, and there's countless times in this film where you see Michael's face. And James Jude Courtney, nothing against him, he's a good looking guy, but I don't need to see his face. He's Michael Myers. Keep him masked. That's what really makes him scary. And ultimately in this film, this is the least scary Myers since Halloween H2O, in my opinion, that we've had. He's not scary. He just doesn't really, he's not an imposing figure. And it feels like the battle that he has with Laurie Strode, he continues to be dominated because he's so frail and so fragile in this movie. And it sucks. But watching this movie a second time, there are things that I kind of picked up on that I didn't really notice the first time. Nick Castle's cameo in this film, I actually really like. I appreciate that they did something different. I appreciate that they actually let him be shown in all of his beauty and his wonderment. I love Nick Castle, always will be my shape. He's my favorite shape that we've ever had, and he'll forever be missed, but I love that that was a great send-off for him, and for him to be able to do something different and unique. Again, there are things I like about this movie. There are things that work for me, but the issues that I have with this film are I think, so heavily impact and sway ultimately where I land on this film, because this movie could have been a lot better. David Gordon Green, I don't know what he has in store for his Exorcist trilogy. I'm curious, but I'm also very cautious with what we got with Halloween Ends and what we got overall with this trilogy. It's serviceable at best. It's not anything to write home about. I really feel like his story, this version of Michael, this version of Laurie, all of Haddonfield, it's concluded. And for this to be the last film of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, I'm okay with. I did say a while ago, and I do mean this, and when Halloween 2018 came out, I said the same thing. Laurie Strode and Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween as a whole is so much bigger than Laurie Strode, and having to kind of come back and retell her story and reshape it and remold it the many times that we've had in this canon, it's tiresome, and I'm ready for something new. And look, an anthology series, it could work in this franchise. Season of the Witch is incredible. I love that film. It is easily one of the best of the franchise, and there's no Michael in it. This film, there's very little Michael in it. It's a story about this young kid who had these dreams, who had these goals, and is upended by an unfortunate accident where he is looked at in this community as a monster for accidentally killing a child, and then seeing his descent into madness. And I wonder, why Corey of all the people in the town? Because one thing that I did have an issue with the first time I watched this film, and then after rewatching it, I was like, oh, never mind, was I thought that in the 4 years of Michael being kind of in this frail state, hiding away from Haddonfield, it didn't make sense to me, because I'm like, well, he was in prison for 40 years, and yet he was able to dominate people. But I guess throughout those 4 years, he was bringing people in and killing people, but again, still doesn't work and doesn't make sense to the events that we saw in Halloween 2018. This movie really kind of contradicts itself, and really, again, shows the invalidity of Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, because this Michael, it doesn't feel like it really follows its own rules. And my only, a question that I have is, why Corey? Why did he decide to kind of transfer his evil into Corey? I don't know. Maybe because the town town of Haddonfield already looks at Corey as a monster, and so, maybe he being able to kind of already be somewhat of a monster to the town, it's less shocking or less surprising for him to kind of go down this path and this journey. And that's probably what it is, but it's not very clear. And ultimately, Halloween Ends is just a film that I feel like has a lot of good central core ideas, but fails to execute them, because when all of this stuff with Corey gets interesting, and then the third act happens where all of a sudden he dies. He's dead. So all of it was for nothing. And then you have your showdown between Michael and Laurie for the last 20 minutes that just feels like such a throw-in thing when it was really the most hyped up thing in the marketing of this film. I mean, that's an issue. I mean, they lied. They lied about what this film is. They lied about what this film was going to be, and that's why I think a lot of people are upset and they feel burned by it, because you had set the stage for Laurie and Michael. This is going to be the biggest epic, most epic showdown in horror history, and it's not, unfortunately. I don't hate this movie. I think it's going to be a movie that might grow better on me as time goes on. It's not the worst film in the franchise, certainly not, but it's nowhere near the top. And ultimately, Halloween Ends, I fall on. I just don't like it. I don't like it as a film. I hope you like it, though. I really have loved seeing other people's opinions. I love that some people love this movie, and that's awesome. I think that that's so great. And again, there is some freshness about this film. There are some things that I really appreciate. Them actually, I saw this cool graphic of Halloween, Halloween 2, and Halloween 3, and all of the logos, right? And then you have Halloween 2018's logo that matches with the original Halloween logo. You have Halloween Kills, which matches with the Halloween 2 logo, and then Halloween Ends, as we know, borrows a lot from Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. And that logo is in line with the third film, and that's kind of cool. And that was definitely not a coincidence. They definitely knew what they were doing, and I think that having that opening title sequence come in, and you have that fresh font that looks like from the same type of font that is used in Halloween 3. I think if I would have known that, I feel like I would have had a better sense of what this film is, because it tells you right in that title card, it tells you exactly what direction they're going with this final chapter of the Halloween saga. And it's not going to be the end. They're going to make more films. I don't know how they're going to bring Michael back. I mean, he was grinded to oblivion. But I think within that 4-year gap that they gave themselves, there is a story there that you can tell with Michael. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they bring him back ultimately. Laurie Strode and Jamie Lee Curtis, she's done. And I'm okay with that. Let's bring Michael back. They could even do a sequel to Halloween 4, which I would love. I've seen something about Rob Zombie's Halloween 3. I don't know about that, but there's definitely certain things that they can do. It's going to be very interesting to see how they bring back Michael eventually. I'm very cautiously optimistic about the future of this franchise, and I think we need to see some Freddy movies. We need to see some Jason movies before we see another Halloween movie. I'd like to see those movies first. And I love Halloween. It's my favorite franchise of all time, along with Star Wars. But to me, we got to wait a little bit to kind of get some fresh, new ideas in the Halloween franchise. And, we shall see where the town of Haddonfield is going to be. But thank you guys so much for watching part 1 and now part 2 of my Halloween Ends thoughts, my review of this film. There's going to be some more content coming, some more Halloween content. I'm planning on having my Halloween franchise ranking video up on Saturday, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And then also, I'm thinking about maybe doing another Halloween-esque video with Halloween Ends. We'll see how that goes. I'm not going to give you any details because I don't know for certain if I'm going to be able to make the video right now. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.